Publius Cornelius Scipio was marching to Spain to attack the Carthaginians, when all of a sudden he realized that the Carthaginian general is already on his route to Italy. The Roman consul was very surprised because on the way there were quite a lot of hostile Gauls in what we today call France. Scipio let most of his army go to Spain under his brother's command, while he sailed back to Italy to warn Rome and quickly create an army to face the enemy. Hannibal managed to march to the foot of the Alps, and then he crossed them with his entire army. Now it was early winter, and no one would expect such an astonishing move. It was snowy and cold, and Hannibal lost almost half of his army, but eventually he did it. He crossed the Alps. The Romans started to be afraid, so they called back the second consul, Tiberius Sempronius Longus, who was at that time in Sicily and wanted to attack Carthage, but he immediately changed his plans. In the meantime, Scipio and Hannibal fought at the river Padus. It was a Roman defeat. It wasn't a decisive battle, but a noticeable one, and Scipio was even heavily wounded. After 40 days of marching, Longus with his army arrived. Scipio, after one defeat, advised waiting until spring and using this time for training troops. He also hoped that his wounds would heal, and some of the Gauls who were previously recruited by Hannibal will walk away after some time with freeze and without battles. However, Longus wanted to confront Hannibal quickly. The elections were approaching, and in spring he wouldn't be a consul anymore. A big victory would be great for his faction. His perspective was, I've marched for 40 days to finally fight against Hannibal, not to wait. On the other hand, Hannibal needed a clash because he had very little food supplies, and he had to win and steal some food, and during the winter the Gauls would likely leave him. Later there was a small skirmish where the Carthaginians were surprised by the Roman forces, and there was in fact a little Roman victory, which proved to Longus that he was able to beat the Carthaginian leader. Hannibal took a city called Clastidium after a treason of the man who was ruling it. This city had big Roman food supplies, particularly lots of grain, so when the enemy took it, the Romans, and especially the Longus, became even more eager to face his opponent. Afterwards, Hannibal found a proper place for a battle. It was a vast plain ground without any trees, but it wasn't flat. It had lots of tiny valleys. Therefore, it was an excellent place for an ambush. He set up his camp on a hill. In the evening, he took his brother Mego and 100 infantrymen and 100 cavalry, the best soldiers in his army. He said that every one of them has to choose 10 or 9, depending on the different sources, companions. Then this unit of 2,000 or 2,200 men under Hannibal's younger brother command hid in the bushes in one of the valleys and spent the whole night there. Meanwhile, Hannibal let his soldiers sleep well, warm properly near the campfires, and he also made bigger portions of food for everybody that evening. Next day, very early in the morning, before sunrise, Hannibal sent the Numidians to attack the Roman camp, which was located on the other side of the river, called Trebia. The attack excited Longus. He sent his cavalry to charge the Numidians, and then he mobilized his whole army and began chasing the enemy, which in turn escaped through the river to their camp. The Romans followed them all the way up to the Trebia, and then they decided to cross the river to get to the Carthaginians. On the other side of the river, there were some Hannibal's soldiers with spears and slings, trying to prevent them from crossing, so Longus ordered to form a wide line to make it quickly with the entire army. Now the water was chest height, but the Romans did manage to cross the river. Now let's have a quick look at the current situation. The Carthaginians had eaten quite well, so they are not hungry at all. They are well rested, and they are warm and fresh. However, the Romans, they had to form their army very early in the morning, as you remember, so they are without breakfast at all. So they are hungry as a bear. Secondly, it was December, and it was frigid, and there was a dense rain. And they just crossed the river with water up to the chest height, so they were utterly soaked. And now, yet, the Romans were fighting uphill. Hannibal positioned his troops in such an order: 20,000 infantry in the middle in one straight line, 8,000 light infantry in front of them, about 15 elephants on each wing, and beyond them, on each side, 5,000 cavalry, counting with Gallic allies. Longus, on the other hand, positioned his troops this way: infantry in the middle in the standard formation, consisting of 16,000 Romans and 20,000 allies, and on each side about 2,000 cavalry. Then the Romans started slowly moving forward. The Carthaginian general allowed Romans to get near. When they came closer, the light infantry on both sides began a skirmish. The Roman light infantry had thrown already most of their javelins at the Numidians, and they were tired and cold, so the Carthaginians quickly and thoroughly beat the Romans. But it's only the light infantry, which wasn't that decisive, so after that the real battle started. The first clash happened with the cavalry. Again, the Carthaginians were in a much better condition, and this time the Romans were also outnumbered. So after that clash, the Roman cavalry died, or most of them escaped. Infantry soldiers were fighting for quite a long time in the middle, and neither side could outbalance the other. At that point, Mago with his 2,000 or 2,200 soldiers from the ambush attacked the Roman forces from the back. The Carthaginian cavalry, which was now free of tasks, and the light infantry attacked the Roman forces from both right and left sides, and the elephants were pressing the Roman wings from the front. In result, both Roman wings started to escape in panic and were pushed back towards the river. Longus, with 10,000 soldiers, managed to knock through the enemy's infantry line, and when they saw that there is no sense in fighting anymore, they marched in good order to the Placentia city. Those from cavalry who survived joined Longus in Placentia as well. In the meantime, Hannibal with his troops celebrated his first major victory in Italy. Afterwards, Longus, obviously he knew how a big defeat it was. Still, he sent to Rome a message saying that unfortunately because of the bad weather conditions, they were unable to definitely defeat the enemy. At first, Roman believed him, but not a long time after, they found out exactly what happened.